Rick Scarborough and Recover America, thank you for watching once again. This is actually part 2 of a video many of you watched a week ago. If you missed that, I urge you to go to our website, recoveramerica.com, and watch the first 15 to 20 minutes, because the information that you're going to hear is just staggering. It is my prayer that God will take this equipment that God has given to us, the skills these men have that are doing the taping and editing, and allow us to explode a message across America. Several weeks ago, I got word that there was a woman trying to correct the ungodly things taking place in the public schools and was not getting a hearing. In fact, it was reported to me that she had visited a number of churches and pastors just didn't want to touch it. And so when it came to my attention, I assured her that no longer will this thing be ignored. We're going to do everything we can to awaken the remnant, the pastors who have not yet knelt a knee to Baal, or in our common vernacular, that are not woke, men that have a sense and a heart for awakening. That's what this is really about. It's about saving not only our schools, but our country. It's also, from my perspective, the last chance we have. You see, if pastors can't get energized to correct this wrong, to protect our children, then there's nothing that's going to wake them up. And so I'm not going to argue with you, pastors. I'm not going to beg you to join our efforts. You don't have to join my efforts, but if you create your own effort, do something for the glory of God and for the protection of children. We're talking, this is not her real name. We've used this to obscure her identity. Her face is also distorted for reasons that will be obvious as we begin. We're going to dig a little deeper in this next 15 minutes than we did a week ago when you watched the first segment. Her name for this purpose is Linda Smith. And if anyone doubts the veracity, you call my office, sit down with me face to face, and I'll give you all the proof you need that we're not making this up. We are engaged in a war for the soul of America. There's an election coming up in just a few days now. If we don't get this message out, if the church doesn't vote and godly people don't select good people to serve on our school boards who can correct this mess, then it's lost. This is really a prelude to May of 2023. In May, there'll be school boards across Texas voting, and we're going to do everything we can to upend this evil hold that the left has on our school children. I always believed we were losing our kids in college, and I've come to realize we're losing them in pre-K through 8th grade, and that's what you'll hear Linda talk about today. This is Linda, a teacher of 10 years now in the public school system, and she is speaking out. Linda, thank you for being on this broadcast for our efforts at Recover America. Good to have you back.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Now, Linda, I want you to talk a little bit about how they're sexualizing our children with pornography, how the Texas Rangers told you that if you did this as a private individual, you could be arrested for it.
Absolutely.
I want to take about 3 or 4 minutes to recap that, and then I want to delve into CRT and some of these other issues you're confronting.
So our children are being sexualized starting at pre-K, kindergarten. It starts slow. They have a lot of gender identity, gender awareness. They use the guise of tolerance and acceptance to teach kids you can wear whatever you want. You can dress how you like. You can be whatever gender you want. There's a lot of terms being thrown around like gender identity, pronouns, things.
Are you forced to choose the pronoun that they want?
Yes. So if the student says, I want to be a boy today, well, then you have to recognize and accept that.
And if you don't, what happens?
Right now, I wouldn't say that it's on paper consequences, but it's highly frowned upon. And we have been told that if it gets pushed hard enough, that we could lose our jobs and our certificates.
Now, the sexualization part, they're seeing a few images even as you speak.
Yes.
Folks, what you're viewing are cartoon illustrations available to 5-year-olds.
Yes.
And what they do is they make it normal.
Oh, absolutely.
That there's no shame, no embarrassment.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The no shame and no embarrassment, that absolutely is becoming the normal thing. The way that these students are talking with each other and with me is something that I've never expected or seen before. I personally, I wasn't raised like that, so I would have been horrified to speak to my teacher the way that these students do. They throw around terms, gay, bisexual, like it's nothing, like whatever they feel like. I even had to research and figure out what a furry was because I didn't know until last year. There's kids that want to be cats, and it's a real thing. And you know,
listen, and we have a pastor friend who did a recording with me earlier, where in Albuquerque public schools they have boys walking around with a chain around their girlfriend's neck because she's a cat.
But, you know, and it's funny, and I actually saw that while I was just in Albuquerque, but it's a very fashionable, trendy thing. Women will have their boyfriends on leashes. I say women, but
and folks, what we're doing now
children.
is we're opening the door to bestiality.
Yes.
These are the last gasp of a nation that is collapsing, that if not corrected, will be the death of our country. Now, folks, listen, this is not playtime.
No.
This is when the church has to get involved. We're the last stand. We're the last hope. And that's the reason God put us on this earth. The Bible says that if we confess that Jesus is Lord, that the gates of hell shall not prevail against us. But if we don't show up for the battle, we lose by default. I remind you of the day that David faced Goliath. 40 days Goliath had humiliated the armies of Israel. 40 times David's own 3 older brothers had a chance to be the hero. And for 40 straight days, when Goliath roared, the armies of Israel fled. And that's what's happening to the church today. The church is getting all dressed up for battle. When an actual fight takes place, they don't show up. I'm looking not for every pastor, but I'm looking for that remnant of pastors who will stand up with me and others. There is a remnant. I've met the pastors that are not ashamed. But what this woman is doing is crying out as a school teacher, save me. I can't abandon the children. The Bible tells us that they're our heritage. The Bible says, if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a millstone fastened around his neck and be drowned in the depth of the sea. This is a godly woman whose profession is teacher, whose background is military. She now is teaching because she loves her country and she loves these children. And she's asking us to save the kids. Didn't mean to break into a sermonette.
But these kids it's real trouble. And, you know, for about a year or two, I kept thinking, where are the parents? Why are the parents not stepping in? How are the parents not being involved? The parents are actively being forced to be quiet. They're censored. They have to. I've had parents crying out to me saying, what can I do? What can I do? They're just running me in circles.
Didn't you tell me that you got thrown out of a board meeting for reading from one of these books?
Twice, yep.
Well, talk about that for a moment.
So I read an excerpt from a book where it spoke about drinking masturbation fluid from a bottle with 10-year-olds. And then I also read one where the 10-year-olds were talking about being gay.
And this is a book?
Yes.
Checked out of a library where you taught?
Yes. This is a book that was checked out, and we actually have members of the school board that publicly defended the book and wanted it back on the shelves.
And those school board members need to be removed.
We've been asking for that.
We'll help you do that.
And unfortunately, we have there's parents that have actually formed, it's called a burned book club. And all of the books that are pornography and the really bad ones, those are the ones that they're highlighting even more. So,
and you mean, in other words, who's highlighting?
We have a group of leftist parents and board members that are getting together, that the more that the conservatives speak out, the more that they actually go against us, and they push these books even more.
Let me remind all of you folks, these same folks embrace abortion.
Yes.
They celebrate abortion.
Yes.
Talk about thanking God for their abortions. But I want to remind you, if you'll destroy an innocent child in your womb, then anything else that you can think of is not a stretch. I mean, you've crossed the great divide when you determine that you have the authority to destroy that baby in your womb.
Yep.
And celebrate that. Now, folks, if you don't understand, we're in a war here. We're in a war for the soul of America, and we've got to find courageous pastors and courageous lay people who will stand up to this. Here's one. We're obscuring her face for obvious reasons, because we don't want her to lose her job, and because I want her to keep fighting this fight. But I'll tell you, she didn't ask us to do this. We did this for her. She walked into the studio thinking that it would be her name and her face that's broadcast. Instead, we're trying at this stage to keep her as much as we can out of harm's way because these people are evil.
Mm-hmm.
They're evil.
We, we have had, I say we, the conservatives have been censored. We've been pushed back. We've been told to be quiet. We actually, at several school board meetings, our mics were cut off. And
because you were reading from the books,
yes,
the kids can check out.
And we actually had the superintendent at the time say he could not believe our crass language.
Now, you mentioned in the last broadcast a term. I had asked you after we were off air what it meant. Tell the folks about these occasional videos you can show the students and what the effect is.
A lot of people think it's just the library books that is part of the indoctrination. It's actually several different platforms. So the books is one aspect. There's a lot of different aspects on how this is happening in our schools. What these school districts are also doing is they're getting independent platforms, and these educational platforms can vary. A lot of them have cartoons or quick videos. One of the popular ones was called Brain Pop. And Brain Pop is an independent platform. It's to assist teachers with their lessons. And then I remember the school had bought a $50,000 license to this program called Brain Pop. And $50,000.
And that gives them a license to show.
To be able to show these videos. And I remember they were showing a video in one of the classes, and it was basically it was CRT. It was about systemic racism. And the quotes and statistics they were using were completely inaccurate. It was very anti-white. It was justifying riots. It was justifying racial inequality, saying things like white people suppress black people can't get ahead because of structural things put in place, which that's a conversation maybe in college, but I don't think an 8-year-old can comprehend that. And I just don't think that's appropriate place.
So we're not educating, we're indoctrinating.
Absolutely. I started noticing that every example in, for example, No Place for Hate, all of the examples of bullying, it was a white bully. It's in all classes across the board. You think it's just in history or social studies. They bring it into math class in their word problems. This was not in my class, but I had a student that I was looking at their worksheet, and it said, this is in first grade. Juan had 4 watermelons, but the ICE agents came and confiscated, which is a big word for a first grader too, but confiscated 3 watermelons. How many does he have? And I was thinking to myself, that's a really complicated word problem for a first grader. And to use the example and bring in ICE, which a lot of kids aren't going to know. So, they're going to ask that, which the teacher is going to have to say, immigration, and then that's going to lead to more conversations. And I just remember thinking that was just so odd to be having that. And it's across in science, it's a lot of climate change and the white people are ruining the land, and we're the ones that are the worst polluters, and it's our fault. In math, it's the word problems it's woven in.
What about the new Green Deal and the end of fossil fuels? Is this being
absolutely
thrown at the kids at that age?
And then I remember, I had at that time I was teaching 8th grade and I was teaching history and at that time, and I had a bunch of kids come in one day and they were really upset, and they were talking about climate change, and they genuinely believe. And they're being taught it's the end of the world. We're in a catastrophe. It's climate change. We're all going to die, and it's very gloom and doom. And I remember thinking that just doesn't seem right for 8th graders to be taught these things that are not even factually accurate.
Not settled science.
It's not even settled science. And then I remember, talking to them saying, well, where are you learning this? Oh, well, in science, that there's indoctrination in that way. And this is for a whole nother subject, but then there's the indoctrination of vaccines and all this COVID non-science science that these kids are being taught, that isolation is good, masking is healthy, vaccines are healthy. All these things are being taught on top of being sexualized, on top of being CRT. So
when do they teach them their ABCs, how to read and write?
I would like to know that. right now, Texas's literacy rates have dropped by over 30% in
Your
the last
fifth
2
graders,
years.
are they proficient in
Absolutely
writing?
not. They're reading at probably, honestly, a second to third grade level, if that.
Which makes teaching very difficult for you.
Extremely difficult.
And the kids that have parents that have brought them along are frustrated.
The parents are very frustrated. We've had parents speak out. We have had parents that are like, we just want our kids to read. And I just want to teach. I just want the kids to read. They put so many other things in our curriculum, and now we have a mandatory, it's a House bill that was passed where teachers are now required to do social and emotional learning. And yes, that is a law, which I understand there's a need for it, but now it's been so heavily indoctrinated that the social emotional learning is where they're bringing in even more sexual things. They consider a student's gender identity part of their social and emotional learning.
We've been talking to Linda Smith, not her real name, a school teacher for the last decade in public schools in and around the county. Some of the books that she has seen in her library, we have in our possession.
Yep.
This one is entitled Rainbow, the first book of Pride. This is The Hips on the Drag Queen Go Swish, Swish, Swish. Isn't that healthy reading for children? She hadn't seen this one. We got it out of a library called The Gay BCs, in which every letter of the alphabet is sexualized. It's a defense of homosexuality. Folks, this is a very real issue. These are children that we're talking about. This heroic woman has put her career on the line, and even her life, as some want to silence such a voice. Proverbs 24:11 through 12 says to us, rescue those who are being taken away to death. Hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. If you say, behold, we do not know this, or did not know this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who keeps watch over your soul know it? And will he not repay man according to his work? Pastors, we have a job, and that's to speak truth into this culture. We have a job to do all that we can to stop children from being destroyed. I was a little tough earlier, and I want to go back and ask forgiveness for saying these people are wicked. Not all of them are wicked. Some of them are very innocently involved, but the outcome is the same. And we want to help everyone to achieve the goal of educating our children. Pastors, I need you to go to our website, recoveramerica.com, and let me know that you're out there, that you're willing to stand up with us. We've got an election coming up in a few days. Every person on your rolls must vote. They've got to be registered, obviously, to do it. But registration is passed. It's time to vote now. And they've got to vote with righteous candidates. Our recommendation for a voter guide is ivoterguide.com. I want to repeat that, and you see it on the screen. ivoterguide.com. They are a nonpartisan group. They simply research what the candidates stand for, and they've weighed in on some of the school board races, which many voter guides don't address. Put in your zip code, and you'll get every candidate that they researched. You can find out where they stand, whether they're liberal or conservative, and there's varying degrees of both. I want you to pray for this brave teacher, that God will continue to uphold her and sustain her. And I want you to join our effort to stop this madness while our children, before our children are destroyed. My name is Rick Scarborough. Recover America is what we're about. Recover America is who we are. Go to our website, recoveramerica.com. God bless you. Have a great day.